Long before humans ever walked across the Australian continent, before the modern forms of mammals had fully diversified across the globe, a strange evolutionary experiment was already unfolding within the ancient forests and river systems of Gondwana. In those distant ages, when dinosaurs still dominated terrestrial landscapes and early mammals lived mostly in the shadows of larger reptiles, certain lineages began to explore unusual biological paths. One of those ancient branches would eventually lead to one of the most perplexing animals ever discovered, the platypus. The platypus belongs to a small and highly distinctive group of mammals known as monotremes. Unlike the vast majority of mammals that give birth to live young, monotremes reproduce by laying eggs, a trait more commonly associated with reptiles and birds. Today, only a handful of monotreme species remain on Earth, including the platypus and several species of echidna. Yet fossil evidence suggests that this lineage once flourished more widely, occupying diverse ecological niches across prehistoric landscapes. When European naturalists first encountered the platypus in the late 18th century, disbelief was widespread. Early specimens sent to scientists in Europe were so unusual that some researchers suspected they were elaborate hoaxes, perhaps assembled by mischievous taxidermists stitching together parts of different animals. The creature possessed a soft, rubbery bill reminiscent of a duck, the dense waterproof fur of an otter, webbed feet adapted for swimming, and the flattened tail of a beaver. Such a combination seemed almost too strange to be real. But as further study revealed, the platypus was not an artificial creation but a living representative of an ancient evolutionary lineage. Its anatomy reflected millions of years of adaptation to a semi-aquatic lifestyle in the rivers and streams of eastern Australia and Tasmania. Far from being a biological curiosity alone, the platypus provided scientists with valuable insight into the early evolution of mammals and the remarkable diversity of life strategies. The modern platypus is a medium-sized mammal, typically measuring between 40 and 60 centimeters in length when including its broad tail. Its body is covered in dense, velvety fur that traps air close to the skin, providing insulation in the cool waters of its habitat. This fur is so effective at retaining heat that the platypus can remain active in cold streams for extended periods without losing body temperature, an important advantage in environments where water temperatures fluctuate with seasonal changes. At first glance, the most distinctive feature of the platypus is its bill. Soft and leathery, the bill resembles that of a duck but functions in a completely different way. It is not used for pecking or filtering food in the manner of birds. Instead, the platypus bill contains an intricate network of sensory receptors capable of detecting tiny electrical signals produced by the muscle contractions of aquatic prey. This ability, known as electroreception, allows the platypus to locate food even in murky water where visibility is extremely limited. When hunting, the platypus closes its eyes, ears, and nostrils completely. In this state it becomes effectively blind and deaf, relying almost entirely on the electrical and mechanical signals detected by its bill. As it sweeps its head slowly from side to side across the riverbed, specialized receptors interpret faint electrical pulses emitted by small crustaceans, worms, insect larvae, and other aquatic organisms. Through this remarkable sensory system, the platypus can pinpoint prey hidden beneath sediment or vegetation. The hunting behavior of the platypus is both methodical and efficient. It dives beneath the surface for intervals that typically last between 30 seconds and a minute, collecting small prey items in cheek pouches located inside its mouth. Rather than consuming food immediately, the platypus stores these items temporarily while continuing to forage along the riverbed. Only after returning to the surface does it begin to chew and swallow the accumulated meal. Despite its relatively small size, the platypus is a voracious feeder. An adult platypus may consume an amount of food equal to approximately 20% of its body weight each day. Such high energy demands reflect the metabolic requirements of a semi-aquatic lifestyle, where constant swimming and diving require substantial energy expenditure. The limbs of the platypus are uniquely adapted for life both in water and on land. The front feet possess large expanses of webbing that extend beyond the claws when the animal is swimming, functioning almost like paddles that generate powerful thrust through the water. When the platypus moves onto land, this webbing retracts, allowing the claws to grip soil and rock surfaces as it walks or digs. Because platypuses spend much of their time along riverbanks, burrowing behavior is an essential part of the daily routine. Using strong claws and coordinated limb movements, a platypus excavates tunnels into the soft banks of streams and rivers. These burrows may extend several meters underground and contain multiple chambers used for resting, sheltering from predators, and raising young. The tail of the platypus also serves several important functions. Broad and flattened, it acts as a stabilizer during swimming, helping maintain balance and steering control underwater. Additionally, the tail stores fat reserves that can be used as an energy source during periods when food availability is reduced. This adaptation is particularly important during colder months when aquatic insect populations decline. Beyond its unusual appearance and feeding behavior, the platypus possesses another feature that is almost unheard of among mammals: venom. Male platypuses have a sharp spur on each hind ankle connected to venom-producing glands. During the breeding season, males may use these spurs during aggressive encounters with rivals. While the venom is rarely lethal to humans, it can cause intense pain and swelling, demonstrating that even seemingly gentle wildlife can possess formidable defenses. The presence of venom in the platypus offers a fascinating glimpse into evolutionary experimentation. Venom systems are relatively common among reptiles and certain fish, but extremely rare among mammals. The platypus represents one of the few known examples, highlighting the unique evolutionary pathways followed by monotremes. The habitat of the platypus consists primarily of freshwater rivers, streams, and lakes across eastern Australia and the island of Tasmania. These waterways provide both food and shelter, as well as suitable banks for burrow construction. Clear water with abundant aquatic invertebrates is particularly important, as these organisms form the core of the platypus diet. Although platypuses are generally solitary animals, their territories often overlap with those of neighboring individuals. Encounters between adults are usually brief and cautious. Much of the communication between platypuses occurs through scent markings and subtle body language rather than vocal sounds. Activity patterns of the platypus are largely nocturnal and crepuscular. This means the animal is most active during the early morning hours before sunrise and again in the evening after sunset. Such timing reduces exposure to predators while also taking advantage of periods when aquatic prey is most active. Life along the rivers of Australia presents numerous challenges. Seasonal floods can alter river channels, heavy rainfall can erode burrow systems, and predators such as birds of prey, snakes, and large fish may occasionally target platypuses. Yet through millions of years of evolutionary refinement, the platypus has developed behaviors and adaptations that allow it to survive in this dynamic environment. By combining ancient biological traits with highly specialized sensory abilities, the platypus occupies a niche unlike any other mammal on Earth. It is at once primitive and sophisticated, an animal that seems to bridge evolutionary eras while thriving within modern ecosystems. And yet, the story of the platypus extends far beyond anatomy and hunting behavior. Hidden within underground burrows along quiet riverbanks lies another remarkable chapter in its life history, one involving eggs, milk without nipples, and the careful raising of one of nature's most unusual offspring. Deep within the quiet riverbanks of eastern Australia, hidden beneath layers of soil and roots, the next stage of the platypus story unfolds in near total secrecy. The burrow systems carved into the banks of creeks and rivers are far more than simple shelters. They are complex structures that serve as nurseries, protection chambers, and safe spaces where one of the most unusual reproductive processes among mammals takes place. While most mammals nurture the young through live birth, the platypus follows a reproductive strategy that feels almost like a living echo from a distant evolutionary era. Females lay eggs. This single trait alone places the platypus in a category unlike nearly all other mammals alive today. Within the group known as monotremes, egg-laying has been preserved as a defining characteristic, connecting these animals to ancient ancestors that lived more than 100 million years ago. The breeding season for platypuses typically begins during the cooler months of the Australian year, usually between late winter and early spring. During this period, males become more active and territorial, seeking opportunities to mate with receptive females. Males may travel long distances through river systems, exploring overlapping territories in search of potential partners. Their venomous spurs, normally inactive, become part of this competitive phase of life, used primarily in conflicts between rival males. Female platypuses, however, remain more secretive. Once mating occurs, the female begins preparing a specialized nesting burrow separate from her normal resting tunnel. This nesting burrow is longer and more elaborate, sometimes stretching over 20 meters into the riverbank. Along the length of the tunnel, the female creates a series of soil plugs, barriers of packed earth that act as protection against flooding, predators, and environmental disturbances. At the end of the burrow lies a nesting chamber carefully lined with damp vegetation. Leaves, grasses, and soft plant fibers are gathered from the surrounding environment and carried back to the chamber tucked beneath the female's curled body. This nesting material provides insulation and humidity control, creating the ideal microclimate for the fragile eggs soon to be laid. After a short gestation period of about 3 weeks, the female platypus lays typically 1 to 3 eggs. Each egg is small and leathery, resembling the eggs of reptiles more than those of birds. Once laid, the eggs are gently gathered against the mother's abdomen where they remain protected by her curled body. For roughly 10 days she incubates them in this position, rarely leaving the chamber. During this incubation stage, the female demonstrates remarkable patience and dedication. Her body warmth maintains the necessary temperature for embryonic development, while the surrounding nesting material stabilizes moisture levels within the burrow. The outside world continues its rhythms of river flow, rainfall, and predator movement, but within the chamber time slows into a quiet vigil of maternal care. When the eggs finally hatch, the young platypuses, known as puggles, emerge in an extremely underdeveloped state. Blind, hairless, and barely a few centimeters long, they are among the most vulnerable newborn mammals on Earth. At this stage they are entirely dependent on their mother for warmth, nourishment, and protection. One of the most fascinating aspects of platypus biology becomes evident during this early stage of life. Although the platypus is a mammal and therefore produces milk, it does not possess nipples like most other mammals. Instead, milk is secreted through specialized glands in the skin along the mother's abdomen. The milk seeps through tiny pores and collects in grooves within the fur, where the young lap it up directly from the surface. This unusual method of feeding reflects the platypus's ancient evolutionary heritage. It represents an intermediate stage in the development of mammalian lactation systems, offering scientists a rare glimpse into how early mammals may have nourished the young millions of years ago. For several months the mother platypus rarely leaves the nesting burrow for extended periods. When she must forage for food, she seals the tunnel entrance with soil plugs to conceal the presence of her young. After gathering prey from nearby streams she returns quietly, reopening the barriers before entering the chamber. During these early months the puggles grow steadily. Fine fur begins to develop across their bodies, their limbs strengthen, and their sensory awareness gradually improves. Although their eyes remain closed for a significant portion of this time, their sense of touch and smell allow them to locate the nourishing milk that sustains them. Eventually the young begin to explore the interior of the burrow. They wriggle across the nesting chamber, testing the developing limbs and interacting with one another in small bursts of movement that resemble play. These early explorations represent the first stages of independence. By the time the young platypuses are around 3 to 4 months old, they are ready to leave the burrow for the first time. Emerging cautiously into the outside world, they encounter flowing water, shifting light, and the immense sensory complexity of the river environment. The transition from sheltered chamber to active aquatic life is profound. At first the young remain close to the burrow entrance, watching their mother as she swims and dives in the nearby stream. Gradually they begin imitating her movements, experimenting with paddling strokes and short dives. Instinct plays a powerful role in guiding these early attempts at foraging. The learning process for young platypuses is subtle but effective. Rather than teaching through direct interaction, the mother demonstrates behaviors simply by performing them within view of the young. Over time, the juveniles develop the coordination and confidence required to hunt independently. Beyond reproduction and family life, the platypus holds a unique position within freshwater ecosystems. By feeding extensively on aquatic invertebrates, it helps regulate populations of insect larvae, crustaceans, and worms that inhabit riverbeds. This feeding activity influences the ecological balance of streams, shaping the composition of aquatic communities. In this way, the platypus functions as an ecological stabilizer. Its foraging habits stir sediments, redistribute nutrients, and affect the abundance of prey species that might otherwise dominate certain environments. Although small in size, the platypus contributes significantly to the health and resilience of freshwater systems. Yet despite its evolutionary success, the platypus now faces growing challenges in the modern world. Habitat alteration, water pollution, and climate change all pose threats to the delicate river ecosystems upon which it depends. Dams and water diversions can alter natural flow patterns, affecting both prey availability and suitable burrow sites. Urban development along riverbanks introduces additional risks. Increased sedimentation, chemical runoff, and habitat fragmentation can disrupt the conditions required for platypus survival. Because the species relies on clean freshwater and stable banks for nesting burrows, environmental degradation has the potential to reduce local populations. Climate change may further intensify these pressures. Extended droughts can reduce river flow and shrink aquatic habitats, while extreme flooding events may destroy burrows and disrupt breeding cycles. Such fluctuations test the adaptability of even resilient species like the platypus. Fortunately, conservation awareness surrounding the platypus has grown significantly in recent decades. Researchers across Australia monitor populations through careful field studies, tracking movements, reproductive success, and habitat conditions. These efforts provide valuable data that guide conservation strategies aimed at protecting river ecosystems. Community initiatives also play a role. Many conservation programs focus on restoring riparian vegetation, improving water quality, and reducing human disturbances along riverbanks. By protecting the broader health of freshwater systems, these efforts indirectly safeguard the platypus and countless other species that depend on the same environments. Despite the challenges of the modern era, the platypus remains a powerful symbol of evolutionary wonder. Few animals demonstrate so vividly how nature experiments with form and function across vast stretches of time. With its egg-laying reproduction, electroreceptive bill, venomous spurs, and aquatic hunting abilities, the platypus embodies a mosaic of traits that bridge ancient and modern biology. Standing at the edge of a quiet Australian stream at dusk, one might glimpse only a ripple across the water's surface or the brief silhouette of a bill breaking through the current. The platypus rarely announces its presence loudly. It moves through its world with quiet efficiency, following rhythms established millions of years ago. Yet behind that quiet presence lies an extraordinary evolutionary narrative, one that connects prehistoric landscapes, ancient mammals, and the delicate river ecosystems of the present day. The platypus is not simply an oddity of nature. It is living evidence of how diverse and creative evolution can be, a reminder that the natural world still holds mysteries capable of surprising even the most experienced scientists. In the gentle flow of Australia's rivers, beneath the shadows of overhanging branches and among the stones of the riverbed, the platypus continues its ancient routine. Hunting, burrowing, raising its young, and shaping the ecosystem around it, this remarkable animal endures as one of the most fascinating survivors in the story of life on Earth.